Hi everyone, my name's Jordan and welcome back to my channel. Today I wanted to do a video that I honestly debated doing for a bit because I don't want it to come off as like super anti this series, the Witcher series, but it is a series that I'm very passionate about in certain aspects, and there's certain things that I find very disappointing about the series. So I figured having a video that just kind of talked about my history with the series and what I like and what I don't like about it, I think would be fun to share with you guys. So first I want to talk about what parts of the franchise of The Witcher I have digested. I started by playing The Witcher 3 game, The Wild Hunt. I played it twice during lockdown, all the way through, because I was unemployed for a while, and what else are you gonna do in lockdown? So not only did I read a bajillion books that year, I also played through The Witcher twice. So that was an amazing game. That game is phenomenal. If you haven't played it and you're into video games at all, it is well worth it. The storyline is great, but I'll get more into that in a bit. So the books, I have read all of them. And then the TV show, I have seen everything that has come out. So that is all of the Witcher content that I have experienced. I have not played the first two games, and I think that's all the Witcher content there is. If there's more, I haven't experienced. So first I want to talk about the game. The game was my first foray into the Witcher franchise, and I absolutely adored it. I fell in love with Geralt, Ciri, and Yennefer right away. Their characters are so amazing, and their relationships to each other are so deep and profound and funny and interesting, and I just had a really fun time playing that game and experiencing that story. I cried both times I played it. I'm not going to spoil it for anyone, but there is a very emotional scene towards like the latter third of the game that had me tearing up both times. It was just phenomenal. But the game as a game is also really great, even if you are not a very story-driven game player. The game itself is really fun. The combat is very unique. In the Witcher lore, Witchers are mutants that are given like these poisons and potions that change their body to be better than a normal human, and they fight monsters. They are hired. They're basically like mercenaries, but for monster killing. And there is a big stigma around Witchers because they're mutants, and people look down on them a lot unless, of course, they need a monster killed. So the combat in the game, you can create potions that you brew beforehand. You like can make your own potions that you then can like take in the middle of a fight that will do different things for you. So there's ones that will bring your health back up. There's ones that will enhance your magical abilities. So there's all these different potions. There's also oils that you can put on your blade, and there are different oils that combat different types of monsters. So there's like a vampire oil, and there is a beast oil for different beasts. And you can get these recipes by looting and stuff, but you also have to gather the ingredients to make these recipes, or you can go buy them from like a merchant. So there's a lot of like forethought put into fights and stuff. And the game is broken into like, there's obviously your main quest line, and then there's the side quest, but there's also Witcher contracts that are separate quests. So there's like job boards in all the major towns, and you can go up to them and accept a Witcher contract and go kill, just all it is killing a monster. And sometimes those expand the story more, and sometimes they're just killing a monster, but you get to really like do that research and prep yourself and do all of this prep to kill the monster. And some of these monsters show up in the main storyline too, of course. So overall, the game is just beautifully complex and very interesting. The combat is very unique. You have, mostly it's all sword stuff. Geralt has 2 swords, and you play as Geralt throughout most of the game. There are a few cutscenes kind of that are you playing as Ciri, but for the most part you are Geralt throughout the whole story. And the story is just so expansive and so fun. In the timeline of Witcher lore, the games start right after the last book. So Witcher 1 is right after the last book. I didn't play Witcher 1 and 2, mostly because I didn't have a system to play it on. I played Witcher 3 on my Switch. So I didn't have a way to play Witcher 1 and 2, but I looked up synopsises of the storyline and stuff so that I wasn't super confused. But The Witcher 3 is just a phenomenal game, and the storyline is great, the combat is great, the mechanics are great. It is an older game, so like the graphics they're older. It is not, they don't have like a remastered version, so the graphics are a little older, but not like, it's not like Final Fantasy 1 or like any of those like really older games. It's a decent looking game. Also, I'm sure that my version doesn't look as good because I play it on the Switch, which is a smaller console. My husband played a little bit of it on his Xbox, and it definitely looked better. So I think it's partially just I was playing on a system that can't handle huge games. Another thing I really liked about the game was that there are multiple endings to how the game will end, and your choices throughout the story impact what happens at the end, and a lot of it in ways that you may not realize. So you have many chances throughout the story to choose which direction the story is going in. You're offered to kill this person. You're offered to say this to Siri when she asks you a question. And there's all these different small choices you make throughout that really influence people's reactions to you, around you, but also how the game ends. And the game ends, I think, beautifully. The 2 times I played it, there was only one thing I changed about my ending because I refused to do the other endings. There are endings, again, I won't spoil it. There's one ending that I know would wreck me and I don't think I could handle it. And then there's also, Geralt has 2 different options for like romance in the story, so you can like choose throughout the story who you're going to pursue or if you're going to pursue anyone at all. And I'm a Geralt and Yennefer stan for life, so obviously I made sure that my ending was always with Yennefer. There are multiple endings, you don't have to be so strict as me. You can play it a few times and like have completely different stories essentially, and I think that's really fun. So as you can tell, I love the game, and that was my first foray into the Witcher media, and I was like, these characters are amazing, the setting is amazing, I love this world. I've got to try the books. So I read the first 2 short story collections, the like 2 first books, The Last Wish and I don't remember what the second one's called, and enjoyed them moderately. I think that there might be some like translation things that make the pacing weird. I don't know if it's the translation or if it is the author. I do not know. But the prose and the pacing is just kind of strange throughout a lot of them, and everything feels very distanced from the characters. I feel like we didn't really get a whole lot of like deep character thoughts and stuff, but with the first 2 being short story collections, it really helped kind of with those problems because it's like shorter snippets of stories, so they didn't need to be really connected. And then I got to the 4 full novels, and that's where things kind of fell apart for me. Kept saying I was going to continue reading them because I was just so invested in the characters from the game, and there were definitely some high points in the books of character development, and there were points where I was like, this is awesome. A lot of the battle was really cool. A lot of the lore is so cool, because like the game is all based on that lore, and I liked it in the game, so I really liked it in the books as well. I got to like kind of see the origins of some of the things that happened in the game. But again, the character distancing thing was weird. I never fully felt as connected to the characters in the books as I did to the characters in the game. The prose many times would like take me out of the story because things were weirdly phrased. And again, that might be a translation thing, I'm not sure. But the pacing was what really was tough. Most of the time we were following Geralt, but there were a few times where we would swap to somebody else's perspective. None of them were first person, if I'm remembering correctly. It was all third person, but like third person limited. And those switches would sometimes be so abrupt, and like it would be in the middle of a battle scene, and then we'd switch to like a boring conversation. And just that pacing that was just constantly like, I was just constantly on edge, waiting for some weird pacing change again. So that was just kind of weird, and it made a lot of the scenes that were supposed to be very impactful less impactful because the pacing was off. Things would get really boring, and then there would be a super cool chapter, and then another stretch of really boring. There was one whole book where all it was Geralt traveling. That was it. There was like no battles. There might have been a few small skirmishes, but it was just Geralt traveling, and it was so boring, the entire book. And I was like, what is the purpose of this? I felt like we didn't get a lot of character development. We didn't get a lot of plot. It was just boring. And then one of the biggest problems I had with the books is the normalization of abuse. And it was just, it got very cringe at times. There was like sexual abuse of a minor, and it was just kind of written off as like A-okay. Like it was not written as abuse, but that's what it was. And it was just really uncomfortable to read many times. And the differences between men and women are just like constantly talked about. While there's a lot of women in power that have a lot of this magic, they're constantly like looked down on, and a lot of their interactions are just very strange and not realistic. And it was just hard to read at times. So a lot of the stuff that I liked about the books were vastly overshadowed by the things I didn't like. The pacing, the lack of character depth, and the strange misogyny and abuse in the books was just not enough for me to stay enjoying the lore and the politics and things like that. Unfortunately, I did read every book, and I honestly regret doing it. I could have DNF'd it. I think since I knew that the first game started at the end of the last book, I was like, I have to know where this lore fits into the game, and that's what kept me going through all of them. But honestly, with the amount I enjoyed the game, I could have just not read them, or just read like The Last Wish and just loved the game for what it was. Now for the TV show, I actually really enjoyed the TV show. And there's only 2 seasons out. I think season 1 definitely had a few faults in its pacing. I think just because a lot of it is trying to introduce you to the world and introduce you to these characters. But season 2 I absolutely loved, and the last episode I've watched so many times, like a specific few scenes right at the end, I've watched so many times because they literally give me goosebumps, and like I squeal like a little pig. I get so excited watching them, and I just loved that last episode. And yes, I am incredibly heartbroken that Henry Cavill is no longer going to be Geralt after season 3, and I'm very disappointed with the showrunners, because if rumors are true, it is speculation I believe, Henry Cavill kept trying to put more of Geralt into the character he's playing, and they wouldn't let him. They were trying to make Geralt different from book Geralt, and Henry Cavill is a super nerd, and he read all the books, he prepped so much, he loves Geralt as a character, and he wanted to try to portray him, and the showrunners were just not letting that happen in a way that he found satisfying. And I also heard that he's doing more Superman movies or something, so I think all of that combined to him just leaving the show. And then now they're replacing him with Liam Hemsworth. Out of the Hemsworth brothers, they got Liam. Like, I don't see him being the same presence and force that Henry Cavill is to the Geralt character. I love Geralt as a character, and I think Henry Cavill was doing a phenomenal job portraying who Geralt is, even if it wasn't 100% what Henry Cavill wanted. And I just don't see Liam Hemsworth coming in and doing that same level of performance. I just can't see it happening. Granted, I'm not super familiar with a bunch of Liam Hemsworth's movies or shows. I've probably seen a couple, but I still he just doesn't even have the presence. He doesn't have the look. He doesn't have Geralt, you know? And I'm just really bummed. Like, I'm gonna try season 4 when Liam Hemsworth takes over, and we'll see. I'm gonna try, but no guarantees I'll even finish it, because I was pretty disappointed, honestly. For a little bit of, like, if you haven't done a lot of Witcher content, the TV show follows the books, and I think they are doing a phenomenal job of taking out all of the parts of the books that are just completely unnecessary and paring it down to have a really smooth adaptation with better pacing, more character development, better dialogue even. Like, the scriptwriters are doing better than the author of the books did with dialogue. And I think that it is a pretty successful adaptation. So successful, I think it's better than the books. So overall, I'm very excited for season 3. Moderately anticipating season 4 and what that will bring. But overall, I highly recommend the game. I don't really recommend the books, and if you like either one of those, if you like the books or the game, I would recommend trying out the show. I know that some people don't love it, but I think it's a really fun adaptation. So that is all of my thoughts on the Witcher franchise. As I said at the beginning, I'm very passionate about the series because Geralt, Yennefer, and Ciri, especially Geralt and Ciri, are some of my favorite characters in fiction, and it was such a blow to my psyche that I did not like the books because I had so much hope. And this is a case of the show and the game are better than the books, in my opinion. I apologize if these books are like your favorite. This is just my opinion. These are not objective truths. This is just how I felt reading the books. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you could please like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know down below your thoughts on the Witcher franchise as a whole and what your favorites and least favorite parts of the franchise were. If you really like my content, please hit the notification bell to be notified every time I post new videos. As always, your support means the world to me, and until next time, thank you guys.